Welcome to 15-Minute Bites, the podcast where tech conversations come in small portions and you're always left with a great recipe on the side. I'm your host, Marty, and in each episode, I spend about 15 minutes with someone I admire in the tech world. We talk briefly about what they're doing, building, teaching, and exploring right now. And then we switch gears pretty quickly into one of their favorite recipes. Could be something that they've had made for them or something that they make themselves, that they've actually cooked themselves. And so we'll start with a quick tech chat and then kind of move into something that's a little more tasty. With me is today's guest, Guy Serle. And,
Hey,
Guy and I connected later on in his tech career, I would say, in the sense of he has been well known for a long time in terms of podcasts. So he's had a long presence in the Mac community. He's a tech enthusiast podcaster. And you know your way around the kitchen too, from what I
I
can tell.
do.
And we'll talk. I'll have more questions about your recipe than I will have about you. But why don't you give us a brief introduction? We'll talk about where people can find you at the end of the episode, but a
Okay.
little bit about what you got into, what you're doing now.
Okay. Well, podcasting, I've been going since about 2004. Started with the My Mac podcast and then took that show over in 2010 with Gazmaz, my UK cohort. And once the whole My Mac thing kind of stopped, we pivoted over and we're doing basically the same show, but it's called the G Men. So it's the G Men podcast, and I'm Guy and he's Gaz, and that's how that works. So there's a reason, there's a method behind the madness. Um, I was also a very prolific writer for my Mac for a very long time, and I have kind of gotten out of that, which I need to get back into it, especially now that I've retired from my original or my official position working for the Department of State. And now I have lots more time to do stuff. And it's kind of how I got back into cooking again. Now, when my kids were growing up, both my wife and I were working. So who made dinner or who was going to make dinner was like a standard, I don't want to say argument. Let's just say uh, heavy discussion almost every single night. And as you know, my wife retired like 12 years ago, and then I just recently retired. And one of the things that I love to do is cook, and I'll tell you why. The reason why I love to cook is that it satisfies the two parts of my life that I really enjoy. Number one, cooking can be very technical. So, you put your thinking cap on and you're doing your thing and you're making this. And then afterwards, the cleanup is therapeutic because it's like you can just turn your brain off and because you're
Mhm.
just washing dishes, and that's not to say that that can't be also intense depending on what you've made, the recipe that we're going to talk about notwithstanding. But it just kind of left me with a good feeling at the end of the night. And after I retired, I find that I'm probably cooking 90% of the time.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm still podcasting. I'm still doing um, Chuck Joyner's Mac Voices live on Tuesday nights, and Dave Ginsburg's In Touch with iOS on Thursday nights, both at 8 o'clock, which I really enjoy. Kind of like the whole panel show thing. And one thing I'm thinking about getting into is doing something live and watching Chuck and Dave do their show live over on YouTube, which you can see on Tuesdays and Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Has kind of given me that itch. Now, I used to do one called Mac to the Future. I don't know, 5 years ago, I guess. And I did that for 3 or 4 years before other things kind of took up my time. But again, now that I'm retired, it's like time is not the problem anymore. So I'm ready to go, and I'm looking for ideas for stuff that I can do. And this is funny, Marty. you're part of the problem, and I'll tell you why. Tuesday is Chuck, Thursday is Dave, and then I have Monday, Wednesday, Friday to choose from, but you've got stuff going on Fridays. Other people have stuff going on Mondays, so it's really, really hard to like carve myself out a niche where I can bring in some of the people that I like to talk to about tech related stuff.
So let's shift to the food part.
Oh boy. Yeah. Mm.
With the time that we have, trying to keep it within a 15-minute bite. Let's talk about what you're presenting. And I can kind of, for those who are watching the video version of this, I can throw up the recipe, not literally throw it up. I can put it on the video.
Yeah,
And
yeah. That words that don't really belong when you're talking about food.
Yeah, yeah. Throw up is not the word you want to use. I'll also just embed this in the show notes, both the video and the audio portion of it. So you can pick it up if you want to. But this is Guy Serle's prime rib or rib roast recipe.
Right, because you can use this with either. Most rib roasts aren't at the same quality as prime rib, but prime rib is very, very expensive. Depending on how many people it is that you're serving, basically, uh, if you're getting it with bone in, like one rib for every two people. So, or maybe even, yeah, one rib for like two people. So if you've got 6 to 8 people, get a 3 or 4 pound roast, which is going to be probably somewhere between 8 and 10 pounds. Now, you don't necessarily, if it's just you and the wife and, maybe 1 or 2 other people, you don't need to go that big. You can go with a 3 to 5 pound roast. And let's talk about the ingredients. So, of course, number one, you need the roast, 3 to 5 pounds. Then you need something to use as a binding agent. And this is something that you're going to put all over the meat so that whatever oregano, garlic, thyme, whatever it is that you're going to add is going to stick to it from the binding agent. Some people actually like to use mustard. I don't, but some people do. I like to use about 8 ounces of unsalted or salted butter. It depends on how you feel about that. And then I get about a tablespoon of oregano, a tablespoon of thyme, tablespoon of parsley, some garlic. And if you want to go to the trouble, you can get it fresh, but that's a lot more trouble than I like to do. So like 1 clove of garlic, and you crush that, or you can go with already powdered about 2 tablespoons or so. And then of course, salt and pepper to cover the entire thing, and 1 tablespoon of rosemary. Now, if you've had it in your freezer, make sure, number one, that you've allowed it to defrost in your refrigerator. Not necessarily, don't take it frozen out of the freezer and just drop it on the counter. Put it in the refrigerator, give it a couple of days until it kind of comes back to life. Once you've done that, before you roast it, take it out of the refrigerator, let it come up to room temperature, and then generously season with salt and pepper while you're waiting for all that to happen. Then you take the remaining spices, oregano, thyme, parsley, and rosemary, put it into a bowl along with the butter, and then blend it. You don't have to melt the butter, just blend it until it's smooth. And then spread that over the entire area of the rib roast, including the ribs if you still have them on. And actually, let me say this. If you get it rib on from a butcher store, the butcher will cut them off and then retie them back on so that you can still have those like after the main feast is done. Ribs, rib roast ribs, delicious, highly recommended. So you spread all that on, once it's come up to room temperature. One other thing that you're going to need is a meat thermometer. And you can get some, let's slide back into tech for a minute. You can get some that are Bluetooth enabled. And it's important that you either have them Bluetooth enabled or you have the meat thermometer stuck in it in such a way that you can see it through the oven door, because you do not want to open the door
Yeah.
during this process. That is very, very important. So you've put your butter and um,
Rosemary.
yeah, rosemary, parsley, thyme,
Yeah.
oregano, you've all that mixed together. That's on, you set the oven for 225 degrees. Now, the method that we're going to talk about is called, um, wow, I am just blanking out here. I cannot believe this. Uh, reverse sear. Now, if you want, before you do any of this, you can sear the roast in a great big pot and, get it nicely browned all the way around, or you can wait until it's actually cooked. And that's what's called reverse sear. And that's the method that we're going to talk about. So set the oven to 225 degrees Fahrenheit. If you're over in, any other civilized place in the world, they might use centigrade. Just do the conversion between centigrade and Fahrenheit. Put the roast onto a roasting tray and put your meat thermometer into it all the way down to the center part of the roast. Then put it in the oven until, and this is for medium rare. If you want it more well done than that, I shake my finger
Shame on you.
vigorously.
Yes.
Shame on you. Medium rare is the best way to do something like this, especially considering the cost of a big piece
Yeah,
of meat
the,
like
the
this.
first time I had medium rare meat was when I moved out of my Irish mother's house and went to college, and I'm like, wait a minute, it's not cooked to hell. I can't understand it. This is
Wow.
tasty.
This
There's
actually-
flavor that's coming out.
And you're not sitting there going, trying to pull the meat off the bone. So you put it in the oven, set to 225 degrees, and then you've got your meat thermometer in it, and you go ahead and you let it come up to about 115 to 120 degrees. And you'll be able to tell this from the meat thermometer, whether it's a standard, looking at it as it's going, or if you're notified through Bluetooth, however it is that you're going to monitor the roast while it's cooking. When it gets to 115 to 120, remove it from the oven. The internal temp will continue to rise for probably 20 minutes or so after you take it out, and it'll come up another 15 to 20 degrees. Rest it covered in aluminum foil while you're preparing the gravy. So on the bottom of the roasting pan will be all of the juices that have kind of come out from the roast. Pour that into a skillet and add a couple of tablespoons of flour. And this is going to be kind of experimental, because how much flour you add will determine how thick the gravy is going to be. So start with a little, and if you have to add more to make it thicker, if that's what you prefer, do that. Don't put in too much. So you continue to stir it until it forms what's called a roux. By that time, all of the flour should be incorporated. Pour 1/2 cup of beef broth into the roux and stir it until it's mixed. And you can add as much beef broth as you like for thicker, thin gravy. And you continue to stir it for, over low heat and just let it kind of simmer. Now, about 15 to 20 minutes after you've done all of this, the roast itself is probably close to its finished temperature or its finished doneness, but it's not going to look that great because the outside is still, it doesn't look like it's cooked all the way, even though it is. So now you set the oven temperature to 500 degrees. You take the foil off, put it back into the oven for about 15 to 20 minutes. Now, once that time period is done, when you take it out, you can serve it immediately because it's already rested. And if the bones are attached, cut those off before serving. Like I said, most butchers will do this for you and then tie them back on for cooking. And then you can have some ribs afterwards.
Hmm.
And you will have a delicious rib roast.
Okay, so you went through that again. We're going to have that in the show notes, which is fine. I've got some questions
Sure.
just because of cooking experience. Have you ever considered using like the minced in a jar garlic? It's like cuts the work in half. It's not dried, but it's also minced in a little fresher in terms of that. So that might be an option
Sure.
that I would consider
Certainly.
with it.
But just remember, it's a
Yeah,
little bit wetter. So,
yeah.
just keep that in mind as you're putting everything together. Now you've got some wetness that's going to be with the butter. So as you're doing all of this, just keep that in mind, because this is like a binding agent. And so if it's too wet, a lot of it is just going to come off.
Sloth.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but the I'm sorry, what did you say that garlic was?
Sloth. Is it like sloth or slough off? Slough.
Yeah, it's basically, and it's got some other stuff in it as well besides
Yeah.
just the garlic. And that's just going to add more flavor. So just bear in mind how much liquid that you're putting in. And if you want to use garlic in that way, terrific. It's just going to add more flavor.
Yeah, I've never heard of this reverse searing process, which is
Mhm.
interesting. The mistake I think a lot of people make that you've suggested to avoid is taking it out of the freezer if you've bought it frozen or if it's been frozen, putting it in the refrigerator or putting it out on the counter for the night, and then assuming the inside is going to be as thawed as the outside.
And it won't be.
It won't be.
It will
So
not be.
if you're going to do that, you want 3 days in a refrigerator at least for it to
Yeah.
get to refrigerator temperature, and then finish the rest of the thawing outside and moving it up to room temperature.
Yeah. And
Yeah, I was,
actually, the absolute best way to do it is to acquire the rib roast just a few days before you're going to use it, and then just put it in the refrigerator. Don't
yeah.
put it in the freezer.
In my community, there's a couple of places. One is 5 miles south, and the other one is 2 miles north. That are these special kind of butcher markets. And the last time I had to make Italian beef, I had to make like 60 pounds of it.
Love
And
Italian beef. Wow, that's a lot of Italian beef. Oh my God.
well, we were expecting maybe 100 or so people to walk through. Mike, if I could cook, I'd cook for an army.
Yeah.
And I'd have everybody out of the kitchen, because for me, cooking, you describe it as kind of a Zen place you go, which is really kind of nice. And then the cleanup is also the Zen part. For me, it's like I feel as close as I can get to conducting an orchestra. It's like moving across the kitchen, doing this, got to get that.
Yeah.
This has to go in now. Then this comes in now. What temp? The only other comment I'll add on this is a great recipe. I told you I'd never heard of this reverse searing. I don't get that sophisticated when I do roasts. In the past, I hadn't. It was like just pop it in there and just make sure the meat thermometer's in it. I didn't think about the importance of keeping the oven closed with it.
Yes. Very
Because
important.
I have one of those, the little needle comes out, you stick it in, and it gives you a reading. And then I thought, well, you're taking it out at 115 to 120, and medium rare, if I remember correctly, is like 145. But that's
Yeah,
where
135 to 145.
that's where the continuing cooking occurs when you tent it, which then gets it ready to go back in for the 500-degree searing for 15 minutes. That's really cool.
And it's delicious. It really
Yeah.
works out well. We actually did one at Christmas time. I'm very fortunate. Now, I do have a butcher in this area that I go to. Springfield Butcher, I'll give them a free plug there. They've got fantastic meat if you live in the Northern Virginia area. But my son Peter also works for a large grocery chain, and he was able to get. It wasn't Prime. It was what's the next one down from that? Select or
Hmm.
whatever the next one is that's down from Prime. However, he was able to get a bone-in prime rib at like $4 a pound,
Hmm.
which is like that's just crazy. So if you have a roast and it's not prime, something to be very very careful of, especially with a roast, is do not overcook it.
Yeah.
A prime cut of beef will give you some leeway, but if you go down from prime, if you overcook it, you're not going to be happy with the results. So
Yeah.
just be very careful. In a situation like that, I said 115 to 120. In a situation like that, if it isn't prime, I would say 110 to 115.
Yeah.
Give it, take it out a little bit earlier so that you can be sure that you don't overcook it, because you can always heat it up, but you can't take any wellness out of it.
Yeah. One short story, and then let's find out where people can
Okay.
connect with you and how they can connect with you. My short story is we have these two butchers. One of them is Buckeye Butchers up in state of Ohio. Pretty
Sure.
good. I've ordered some meat through them because of the convenience. I can go up there and I can get it, and fairly good work. There is a larger operation about 5 or 6 miles south of town. And the name of it's escaping me, and it's probably good for about what I'm ready to say. It's like you pull up and you smell manure
Hmm.
because it is literally a store that is constantly crowded with people. And they have the animals outside that will wind
Oh,
up in
so
the
they're
store.
they
So,
are literally they are literally butchering them right there on
yeah,
site.
right there.
Wow.
And what makes it very weird for me, and is that this is it's very clear this is a faith-based operation.
Hmm.
So when you get whatever package you get from them, and they have like all sorts. I go there because if I cook Turkish, I can get veal, I can get lamb, I can get the kinds of things that you typically don't find in grocery stores.
Right.
But because it's faith-based, all of their labels have the price on it, and underneath it, it says Jesus saves. And
Didn't save the animal.
that's their general reaction to it. But they have really good meats, really good prices, and a variety of stuff there besides meat, but a variety of meats too. That is just, and you can do it to order. I mean, you go up there and
Nice.
they take tickets, and it's like, I need 5 pound roast. They'll go back, bring out a couple of them, and show them to you and stuff like that. It's a great place. But the irony of that
Jesus
slogan,
saves.
and I don't know, it might be have a double meaning. It might be you get a good price here, or your salvation is probably important to them, but they don't think about the fact that they're putting it on dead animals. Uh, this is the first show I've had a chance to talk about butchers, so thanks for that.
You're
So
welcome.
tell us where we can find you and follow the work that you're doing.
Okay, if you would like to find out what I'm doing, go on over to the podcast aggregator of your choice and look for the G-Men Show, or just put in G-Men Show. I'm sure it'll come up. And you can listen to all the crazy things that I talk about on that show. And it's all, tech related. I like to think of the G-Men Show as the tech show for people that really don't like tech shows. And so it works out well. I've had Jeff Gammon on. You've been on a number of
Yeah.
times. Dave has been on. I'm trying to get Chuck on. I love Chuck. Chuck Joyner he's so dry.
Yes.
I love talking to Chuck.
You want Chuck on there because you love talking to him, but he's a kind of a easier person, I think, for you to take off balance.
Probably,
your energy can take people off
are
balance.
you saying that I say things that knock people off their stride? What?
Well,
What?
yeah, I mean, Chuck is great, does a really good show, and
He does.
kind of makes you think a lot about the larger issues in technology, and I think he's a very good host and very good interviewer.
He's a great
with
host
people that he's
and
interviewed.
terrific interviewer.
Yeah, but I can imagine you and him together on your show versus
that would be fun.
his show and you being on it. So,
well, it's usually fun when especially if Jeff is also on.
Yeah,
because Jeff and I have this weird chemistry that goes back and forth that I think in the wrong type of show could be very dangerous, but it works. And I love talking to Jeff when he's also on either Chuck's show or Dave's show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Other than the G-Men show, there's also Guy's Daily Drive, which I don't do anymore. I used to record a show in my car on my way to work. And it's called Guy's Daily Drive. I did that for like 5 years. And this is an archive of ones I did that goes all the way back to 2018. And I'm also doing this thing called Tales from the AI verse, which there's only 2 episodes out there, but I swear to God, I'm going to make more someday. They will eventually come out. As far as the socials go, you can send us email to gmenshow@icloud.com. I'm over there. I'm still on Twitter. But then I kind of balance that by also being on Blue Sky as either Mac Parrot or Vert Shark. Gazmaz is over on Mastodon, Gazmaz at c.im, and he's also on Blue Sky. Or you can talk to both of us on Twitter and Blue Sky as Guy and Gaz. And even better, we have a Google Voice number, which is 703-828-4677. And if you call that number and say something, chances are it'll be on the show. Lots of people like to call that number and tell us how awful we are at podcasting, and we play them. We don't care. We have no pride.
Yeah. I like people. I've gotten a few of those emails like, this show was really terrible. It's sort of like, well, tell me what your show is. How many, I really want to listen to your show because obviously you know what's good and what's bad from your experience of having to put one of these together. So I recall you're the reason for this show because we started a long chat in our kind of group chat of people who do podcasts, and you started talking about food. We all started kind of chipping in on food, and I think it might have been you that said, "Be careful, Marty will turn this into a podcast."
Yes. And lo and behold, you did.
Yeah. So thanks for being here, and thanks for telling about this recipe, and thanks for listening to 15-Minute Bites. Check out the show notes, full recipe, so you can put Guy's prime rib on your table this weekend.
Put Guy in your mouth.
Yeah, put a little Guy in your And if you like that kind of approach, that kind of humor, listen to the G-Men.
Yes.
If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe. That's kind of lets us know that you're listening, and it helps. You can make comments if you want to. That's fine too. Until next time, keep experimenting, keep cooking, and remember, good ideas often start at the table.